I don't need help.
Then show me your arm.
There's nothing wrong with me. Then show me your arm.
Alright, time to stop that. I need to get professional now. With the amount of time that I spent on that, I really hope at least one person laughed at that. Otherwise, I'm never doing a skit for these videos ever again. Ben 10 was a very unique cartoon about a snarky 10-year-old kid that one night obtained the power of the Omnitrix, a device that lets him transform into various types of aliens. He then used these aliens to help save the United States from various organizations and villains. The idea and concepts for the aliens as well as the world surrounding Ben 10, including the plumbers and the Novoid, were awesome, and the designs for the aliens were really cool. All of this has only expanded since it originally aired in 2005, and then it got rebooted and it's okay. I don't really have much of an opinion on it. It's better than some of the reboots Cartoon Network has aired at least. Regardless, we're not here to talk about that. We're here for the original series, and more specifically, the game based off of this series, Ben 10 Protector of Earth. This game released while the show was still airing in 2007, which had to have meant something for the popularity of the show. It also released on a good amount of systems including Wii, PS2, DS, and PSP. The PSP version is the one I'm looking at, by the way, so some issues might just be on this version specifically, but not sure. But boy oh boy, does this game have some competition, because it released in the same year as Super Mario Galaxy, the first Uncharted game, Guitar Hero 3, Halo 3. Yeah, this game was probably swept under the dust. But hey, you guys voted for it, and today we're going to be looking at Ben 10 Protector of Earth. One night a bug sneaks into the rust bucket and absorbs energy from the Omnitrix. The following morning it is discovered that Ben can't use most of the aliens that he was once able to. The gang later finds Omnitrix crystals containing the missing aliens. Now they must travel to the United States to try and recover the remaining aliens for the Omnitrix while taking down plenty of foes from the series to make sure they can't wreak havoc on Earth. All in all, this story is all over the place because it involves so many different people with differing motives. Usually I don't mention spoilers for games in case someone wants to play the game, but who's actually wanting to try and play this game. This whole series is to look back at a childhood, not current games. Anyways, to show off how this story just goes everywhere, there's the Forever Knights that try to take on a mysterious upcoming alien force themselves, Kevin 11 who's trying to get back at Ben for trapping him in the Novoid, Ghost Freak is trying to kill Ben, Vilgax is trying to put Earth into the Novoid, and that's not even all the plot lines or characters involved. There's just so many people involved with the story, and while I kept up with it for the most part, they never really felt connected. It all feels like multiple episodes, which I guess does make sense given it is based off of a TV show, but in my opinion, I just don't like the approach they went. Due to this releasing during the show, every voice actor involved in this game are the same ones from the show. This is really nice because not too many license-based games, unless they're AAA, don't end up doing stuff like this. There are also a good amount of characters that end up returning. All of the previous people I mentioned, plus Dr. Animo, Clancy, and more are here. The music and sound cues feel very much like the show it's based off of. Even the death sound feels authentic. The game's music is filled with the subtle quirkiness that replicates what the show provided, and I love it a lot. Even conversations between characters feel genuine. You would think that that would be an easy thing to do, but writing characters well is hard, especially when you're using already existing characters as they have to feel true to the original material. Thankfully, the characters aren't just written off as one part of their character or given no personality at all. So, good job writers.
You feed your own grandchildren some 30-year-old failed genetic experiment for dinner? There is just so much that is wrong with that.
The character models are pretty good and really accurate. Though it does feel a little strange seeing it in 3D, it does a really nice job. It's at least a better job than some games that try to take a 2D art style into 3D. Believe me, some people's art styles are just not meant for 3D. You can play as Ben, Forearms, Heat Blast, Accelerate, Cannonball, and Wildvine as you beat up enemies, platform across gaps, and solve puzzles. You can change from Ben to his alien forms when the Omnitrix gauge is filled up. You're able to revert from alien form before the gauge runs out. Ben will be forced out of the form if the gauge runs out or if his alien form dies through taking damage. After turning back into Ben, you will have to wait a short amount of time before being able to turn back into another alien. The amount of time you have to wait depends on how filled the gauge was when you changed into Ben. Each character has light, heavy, and special attacks that they use to perform various combos. There are also air attacks that can be done to cover both air and ground enemies. Special attacks and certain combos utilize a particular alien's power and cost more of the Omnitrix gauge to use. Ben is able to gain experience by defeating enemies to gain more combos for individual aliens. Once he's gained enough, he is able to unlock a move for whatever alien you choose. There are 5 areas in the game, each with 3 standard beat 'em up platforming levels and a boss fight. 4 of them have a little mob fight where you have to defeat a bunch of enemies. The end of each level will give you a rank based on how long it took you to complete the level. Throughout said levels, there are plenty of pickups that you collect by breaking breakable objects. There are ones that give you health or refill your Omnitrix gauge, and others are temporary power-ups which either give you increased damage or make you invincible for a short amount of time. These are more often found in the open if you look for them. Scattered around various levels are upgrade power-ups, which increases the recharge rate of the Omnitrix, reduces the amount of the gauge you use for moves, or increases your health. You might also find some Super Slimer cards that are in every standard level of the game. Collecting all of them in a level will unlock special movies. Some of these you'll have to come back to later to get though, since getting to them requires alien powers that you get later on in the game. Gwen and Grandpa Max will help you out by giving you tips on how to progress, and whenever a new enemy shows up, Max gives a little description about them as well as stats so you can figure out how to fight them. The music feels like it came straight from the original show, and there are actually some really fun songs to listen to, even if a lot of them are 30-second to a minute loops. The original theme song is even in this game too. The combat is satisfying and can be really fun alongside said music. The moves that you learn can even be comboed into each other if you take the time to see what works and what doesn't. Each alien you play as feels unique and have moves and puzzles cleverly designed around the alien's powers, like Heat Blast being able to put out fires and accelerate using its quick movement for fast moving objects. Sometimes you'll even have to use multiple aliens to get past something, which shows even more thought was put into the level design. This style of gameplay fits very well with the concept of Ben 10. The representation of characters are also very nice, not just the main trio but all of the bad guys as well. Everyone acts in character, and aside from story reasons, they work really well. Despite so many of the characters being involved in this game, you're not able to use most of Ben's aliens. Ghost Freak is an exception because that actually happens in the show and in this game. Grey Matter is another because he's way too small to be playable, and Ripjaw because he needs water all the time. But what about the other aliens? Wild Mutt, Stinkfly, and Diamond Head were the ones I felt made the most sense, were the most recognizable out of the other aliens that were left, and could have worked well for this game. Especially Wild Mutt and Diamond Head, since they were the first ones to ever be shown off on the show aside from Heat Blast. There could have even been a more obscure one like Blitzwolfer or Upchuck, but instead we only have 5 aliens to play with. This was a highly missed opportunity to me. Ben's dodge is garbage. Now I understand that Ben in his original form is the weakest out of every form in the game, and that's perfectly fine, that's how it is in the show. But the fact that his dodge, the one good thing about him, doesn't even have invincibility frames is horrendous. Since Ben basically can't do anything but wait out the timer on the Omnitrix, he just has to stay away from enemies the entire time or he'll basically die instantly. So why is it that the one mobility option he has is garbage? Some invincibility frames fixes this whole issue. And on the flip side, Cannonbolt is actually broken. He has high damage output with big multi-hitting hitboxes on a lot of his moves, pretty good speed on attacks, low usage on most of his moves, and low in lag on a lot of his attacks. The moves that do require more usage are really strong, and there's a point in the game where your moves basically cost nothing anymore. I actually had to stop myself from using him so often sometimes, just to make sure I had footage of the other aliens. It's that bad. He honestly doesn't really have any real weakness or flaw like the other aliens have, and is useful for every single situation. Getting hit while doing certain actions will still make you stagger after the move is done. This can easily lead into being comboed to death, which happens more often than it should. Either give the move armor so it doesn't stagger, or have the move interrupted when I'm hit. The intro scenes to bosses will have the boss character not have vocal lines. I don't know why that is the case because the rest of the game is voiced aside from text from Grandpa Max and Gwen. And this is with all the bosses in the game. Not a single one has voice lines during the introduction. It's only a few extra voice lines. I really don't understand why these aren't voiced. This game holds your hand way too much. Grandpa Max and Gwen will almost always give you advice on how to advance and not let the player figure it out, but at the same time I've had text vanish before I was even able to read it. I know that my statement contradicts itself, but the text needs to at least be consistent with itself so that my statement can be consistent with itself. The standard cutscenes can be a little bit weird sometimes. It's mainly because the aspect ratio for them change compared to everything else, which doesn't make much sense to me, but whatever I guess. It's not hard to notice, but it doesn't really hinder gameplay at all. Forearms' air hitboxes are stupidly big. I know that air attacks are supposed to cover the air and ground, but look at this. Look at it! No other characters has attacks that are this out of proportion, unless they're intentionally made that way. Honestly, if there's no air enemies around, there's nothing stopping you from doing this all the time. Then again, it is really slow to do this, and also really boring, so I guess that's stopping you. When it's time to get a new move, the game doesn't give you a demonstration of what the move does before you get it. This potentially means you could waste a point on a move that you don't even like. You're also not able to deny getting a new move either and add points later on. Now earlier I said that enemies could just combo you to death, but you're also able to cheat enemies alive, and it's mainly with Cannonbolt. I've had plenty of times where I was washed by enemies due to stun locking and lack of invincibility frames, but right after I could get through them with no issues. It's weird. Maybe I'm just bad at this game, I don't know. Whenever you get a new alien, the cutscene reuses the clips of alien transformations from the show. It feels lazy to me that they didn't actually try to animate the transformation. It also clashes with the rest of the game since nothing's like this. This game did a pretty good job of staying true to the source material with the sounds, music, and voice actors, and overall is a fun game. However, I've seen this game be incredibly cheap with the amount of damage things can do to you, and overall hit stun which leads into instant deaths. To be honest, all that would really need to be changed is the hit stun, and Ben's dodge needs to be better and everything would be fine. Also, the overall story could connect better, and I would have loved to at least use some of the other aliens from the show. All I can really say about this game is it could have been better, but it also could have been a lot worse. There's just a few things from this game that keep it from being great, and there's definitely effort put into this game, and I'm happy with that. As long as I can see effort within the game, I can at least say the developers tried. What's going on, my fellow residents? It's me, the Frozen Cavern, and thank you guys for making it this far into the video. Now, some of you might have taken notice that I actually did this game first instead of Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's because it's going to take a little bit longer because of a special reason. I'm not going to say why, but there's a special reason why it's taking a little bit longer, but I at least had to make sure that I had another review out, so this is here. Also, I did mention earlier that this was actually voted for, so make sure you go into the description where you can find my Twitter, which is where the polls are actually being done. And at some point, I will have another one up, that way I can have another game to review in case the Avatar one isn't out yet. I'm hoping that it will be, but who knows. I need to at least make sure that I have some form of backup plan in case things don't really work out too well. And also, I now have an Instagram, so make sure you guys go to that, as it is another way of making sure whenever I upload a video. And again, that will be in the description of this video. But until the next video, take care.